Gordon the high-speed engine. High-speed Gordon. Donald was excited. "The diesels at Young Works," he announced, "say that on the other railway there are things called high-speed trains. They have a diesel engine at each end and can go at 125 miles an hour. Gordon snorted. "An engine at each end," he said scornfully. "There's only one of me, but I bet I can go as fast as those smelly boxes on wheels. Probably faster," he added. The others said nothing. They had heard Gordon's boasting before. Gordon was still bragging the next morning. "Speed's nothing to me," he said. "Why, one of my Doncaster cousins went at 125 miles an hour. I'll show those diesels a thing or two. Just you wait and see." He puffed grandly towards the station. Gordon normally pulled the express, though Henry, James or Bear helped if Gordon was ill or away. Many visitors came to see the Fat Controller's railway. Often used the express, so it was usually full and heavy. There had been frost during the night, and now the weather was wet and sleety. Sleet settled on the rails, making an icy film across their surface. The carriages of the express stood under the cover of the station roof, but when Gordon was coupled to them in his cab and front end stood outside. He grew colder and colder as he waited for the guard to blow his whistle and wave his flag. "Come on," he shivered impatiently. "Let's get started." At last Gordon heard the whistle. "Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on," he shouted as he tried to pull away quickly. But his wheels slipped on the icy rails. The sudden movement made water in his boiler surge forward, and Gordon's driver could not shut off steam. Gordon moved a yard and slithered to a standstill, held back by the heavy train. His wheels spun furiously, but neither Gordon nor his train budged an inch. "Help! Help!" wailed Gordon despairingly, but nobody could. Gordon's wheels spun until his rods ached, but he could do nothing to stop them. The driver tried every trick he knew. Inspector came and tried some more, but it was no good. The Fat Controller came to see what the fuss was all about. He said several things to Gordon, but Gordon was making so much noise that he couldn't hear them. Sparks showered from the rails, but Gordon's wheels went on spinning. It was a quarter of an hour before Gordon had used up all his steam. Reduced pressure allowed the driver to close the regulator, and with a deep sigh of relief, Gordon felt his wheels stop turning. The silence was amazing. Donald came to take Gordon to the shed, and Henry came to pull the express. When the train had gone, workmen had to replace the rails where Gordon had been standing, because his spinning wheels had worn deep grooves into them. The shed was empty. Donald tactfully remembered another job and left Gordon on his own, but that night Gordon heard a whisper from close by. "Did you hear?" he hissed. "Gordon went for a spin today." There was a quiet chuckle. Gordon seethed in silence. "High-speed engines are all very well," the whisper went on, "but Gordon should know by now. He's supposed to move his train too." Gordon snorted disgustedly, and with a gasp, the whisperer subsided into silence. Smoke screen. Gordon was feeling stuffed up. "It's the coal, Gordon," explained his fireman. "It's clogging up your tubes something awful. But we'll have to make do with it as there's nothing else." "Why not have a good sneeze, Gordon?" suggested Henry, thinking of the time when he had punished some boys for dropping stones on him. "That will clear your tubes." "Certainly not," replied Gordon with dignity. "The Fat Controller wouldn't approve. He didn't like your sneeze, I seem to remember." Next day, Gordon was nervous as he backed onto the express. "At least I shan't slip today," he thought, "but I suppose they'll laugh at me again if I don't keep time." He needn't have worried. By the time he reached the junction, he was running nicely, and as he approached Edward Station, Gordon's fireman began to make up the fire. "Let's get a good run on the hill while you've got enough steam to do it," he said. "I don't trust this low-grade coal." At the station, a party of wedding guests, all in their best clothes, was standing on the platform. Gordon swooshed through, running hard for the hill. Smoke from the newly made fire steamed from his funnel. He went into the distance and left a black smoke screen settling over the station. It covered everything, wedding guests and all, in a coat of soot and smut. Waves to Gordon became shaking fists, and the wedding party hurried angrily to the station master's office. At the end of the line, an inspector came to see Gordon. His message from the Fat Controller was short, but not sweet. "It's not fair," Gordon complained to Boko. "How could I help all that smoke? It's not my fault that the coal was so dirty." "Never mind," Boko urged him encouragingly. "Where would I be if I got upset every time someone called me smelly? Anyhow, soot's good for the garden. My driver says so." "But not for new clothes," muttered Gordon. Gordon was extra careful on the way home, but it seemed today wasn't his lucky day. The Fat Controller had broken a journey to the other railway to apologise to the people at Edward Station. He had done his best and was waiting for another train when Gordon came by. As the express thundered through, a cloud of black flakes flew from it and landed on the Fat Controller's new top hat. When Gordon reached the big station, there was another message waiting for him. "The Fat Controller says," announced the inspector, "that Gordon blew ashes on his top hat as he passed Edward Station." Gordon was horrified. "Whoosh!" he exclaimed indignantly. "I did not. I was being extra careful." "I'm sure the Fat Controller can't be put right," put in Gordon's fireman. "I can't help it," said the inspector. "That's what he says, so there it is. He will speak to Gordon when he gets home." Gordon went sadly back to the shed. Fire escape. "Driver says the Fat Controller's coming home tomorrow," said James a week after Gordon's bad day. Gordon grunted. He wasn't anxious to see the Fat Controller. "I must do well today," he said to himself as he waited to start the express. "A good run today might help, if the Fat Controller hears about it." Things did not begin well, though. Thanks to a last-minute passenger, they were late starting, which meant that Gordon missed his path at the junction and was delayed there too. But with a clear run after that, they flashed through Edward Station, going splendidly. They were halfway up the hill when there was a clatter beneath Gordon's cab. Suddenly he felt a blast of cold air in his middle, as if there was a gap between his boiler and cab. "Oof!" he gasped. "What's happened?" The fireman looked at his fire. There was a gaping hole in the middle, where the fire bars had collapsed. A large part of the fire had disappeared. "You've lost part of your fire, Gordon," the fireman explained. "And what a place to do it." Already Gordon was feeling weaker. Without a full fire, his steam pressure and speed fell quickly. But his driver knew what to do. "Find the biggest piece of coal you can, and put it across the hole," he told the fireman. "That will stop some of the cold air from getting in, and we'll be able to hold some steam better. But hurry, or the hill will beat us." The fireman hurried. A large lump of coal lay near the front of the tender. Quickly he moved it into place with his shovel and a long steel bar. Gordon felt better at once. "Now build the fire gently round the edges," said the driver. And as the fireman did so, the driver adjusted Gordon's controls to make the best use of his steam. "Right, Gordon," he said when the fireman had finished. "It's up to you." Gordon tried his hardest, but it was tough going. "I must do it! I must do it!" he told himself as he pounded up the hill. He had stuck here once before and was determined not to fail again. Poor Gordon was getting very breathless. "I will do it! I will do it!" he panted, but he was careful not to pant too loudly in case he blew away what was left of his fire. He shut his eyes and struggled on. At last Gordon felt that the slope was easier to climb. Cautiously he opened one eye. Yes, he was nearly at the top. "I've done it! I've done it!" he gasped triumphantly. The fireman wiped his brow. "That was splendid, Gordon," he said, "and now you deserve a rest." A signalman turned them into a goods loop, and telephoned the works for a pilot engine to be prepared. While they waited, the passengers got out and told Gordon what a useful engine he was. Boko was at the works to help, and the two engines finished the journey without further trouble. At the end of the line, the Fat Controller was waiting for them. To Gordon's surprise, he was smiling. "Thank you, Boko," he said. "And thank you, Gordon, for a splendid effort. I'm pleased with your work today, though certain other things leave much." But then a whistle blew, and the Fat Controller had to hurry to his carriage. Once again, Poor Gordon was left in suspense. Gordon proves his point. One day, Gordon reached the big station on the main line to find the platform crowded. "It's a rail tour," explained his driver. "Going along the coastline to Carlisle, I think." The station master came up. "Can you help?" he asked. "These rail tour people are stuck because their train has failed. Could Gordon take them in his train, please?" Gordon's driver laughed. "You'll have to hold him back, eh, Gordon?" he said. "But you need the Fat Controller's permission. And what about our return train?" The Fat Controller agreed at once. Then the station master rang the shed. "What can you substitute for Gordon's Express?" he asked. "There's the high-speed engine that came yesterday," they suggested. "It's only got one power car working, but it should keep the Fat Controller's timing." Philippa, he preferred Pip for short, and Emma were delighted to stand in for Gordon. Pip's cooling system was faulty, which made her hot and bothered, but Emma didn't mind doing all the work. They felt honoured to visit the Fat Controller's railway. James, following a little later with a stopping train, was surprised when the signalman at the station beyond the works came up. "High-speed diesel's failed," he said. "Go gently until you reach it. Push it to the next loop, and then go round in front to pull it home." "Phew," marked James. "But what about the express passengers? They won't want to make our stops." "Too bad," said the signalman. "Better that way than your people missing their stations." James found the failed train about 2 miles in front. He pushed it to the next station and then got ready to pull. "I'm sorry I can't help," apologised Emma, who was in front, "but we are special lightweight coaches." "That's lucky," said James, who was already feeling puffed, but he found it easier than he expected. Once the train was moving, the coaches followed smoothly. As for the passengers, if they wondered about the extra stops, they didn't complain. The Fat Controller met them. "Sorry we're late, sir," said James. "That's all right, James," said the Fat Controller. "I'm pleased with you. You have saved an awkward situation. Now, please, make Pip and Emma welcome in the shed while I arrange their journey home." The other engines were quiet at first, but they soon found the diesels friendly, and before long they were all laughing together. James was glad Gordon was away. He might, he thought, so easily have said something to upset them. Gordon came home the next day. The Fat Controller forgave him for his smokescreen, and said that he was sorry for thinking his spoiled top hat had been Gordon's fault. It had, he explained, been a steward emptying an ashtray from a carriage window. "Now, Gordon," he continued, "whilst you were in Carlisle, we borrowed a high-speed train. This has failed, and I want you to take her passengers home." He paused and smiled. "Show them how we do things, eh?" "I certainly will," promised Gordon. "Right," said Gordon's driver as they backed towards the train. "Today, Gordon, my lad, you can have the run of your life." He did too. Nicholas was waiting to pull Pip and Emma home when Gordon passed. "Burp, burp, burp," whistled Gordon proudly, and with a swish and a roar he was gone. Pip and Emma watched enviously. Douglas chuckled. "Ugh," he said to himself, "young Gordon's a high-speed engine, but it's me who's pulling the high-speed train." Toby, Truck and Trouble. Mavis and the Lorry. Mavis is a diesel engine belonging to the Farquhar Quarry Company. She is in charge of the stone trucks at the quarry, and when Toby is busy or there are too many trucks for him to manage by himself, she is allowed to bring a loaded train down to Farquhar. She enjoys this because the journey gives her a chance to watch her wheels. Besides, she sometimes finds it dull up at the quarry with no one to talk to but the trucks. For most of the way, the line runs beside a road. Mavis is always very careful, especially at the place where Thomas once had an argument with a policeman. A road crosses the line here, and through there are warning signs. Some of the cars and lorries come round the corner much too fast. They make Mavis nervous. "There'll be an accident one day," Mavis's driver often says as they pass the place. She feels to him that he is right. One day Mavis was late. The trucks had been in all the wrong places and she had to waste time sorting them out. As she came down the line, she felt them surge against her. "Stop pushing," she growled at the misbehaving trucks. They neared the crossing and Mavis saw a lorry coming towards them. "He'll stop when he sees us," she thought, but she couldn't know the lorry driver was new to the island. The last thing he expected to see was a train. Much too fast, the lorry approached the corner. Too late, the driver realised it was sharper than he expected. He swerved, and at that moment he saw Mavis halfway across the road. He braked hard and swung the steering wheel, but he was too late. The lorry's front bumper jumped, caught Mavis's cowcatcher, and the lorry left the road and skidded into a ditch. With a loud crash, it fell onto its side. Mavis, who had already stopped, watched in horror. "Ouch!" she exclaimed. "That hurt!" I didn't push him over," she cried in alarm. The driver laughed and jumped down. "No one's blaming you," he said, "but I hope the lorry driver is all right." The lorry's right-hand door was deep in the ditch, but now a figure could be seen struggling to climb out at the other side. Mavis's driver went to help. "Is that a train?" the man demanded. Mavis's driver laughed. "It certainly is," he said. "You must be new on the island, not to have seen us before." Mavis's front was bent, but she was badly hurt. Her owner sent her to be mended and asked the Fat Controller if he could borrow Toby while she was away. "What about the trucks down here, sir?" Toby asked anxiously. The Fat Controller nodded. "I'm afraid it will mean more work for you and Percy," he said. "But Toby's shire plates make him the only engine who can go up there. You remember what happened to Thomas, don't you?" And with that, they had to be content. Toby's Seaside Holiday. The Fat Controller first met Toby and Henrietta a long time ago, when he was on holiday in East Anglia. Later, when their line was closed, the Fat Controller heard about what had happened, and brought them to Sodor. Before that, Toby had worked at a harbour with several of his brothers. The harbour had been busy, and the engines were kept bustling about, but Toby never really had a chance to exercise his pistons properly, until he had his own line to run on. One day, Toby was resting alone in the shed at Farquhar. Earlier, Percy had been talking about the harbour at Knapford. Toby remarked the old days when he had worked at the harbour too. "I'm too old now to dash always like I did then," he thought. "Backwards and forwards all day long between the harbour and the big station, with never any chance of a holiday. But I did go to the seaside once," he remembered. "For a while, at any rate." His driver and fireman had been so excited when they came to work one day. "We've been promised a trip to the seaside," they said. "What do you mean?" asked Toby. "There's a seaside village near here," explained the driver, "where they have a festival each year. Lots of people come to it, and one of the organisers think it would be a good idea to have a display of engines at the station as an extra attraction. And you, Toby, are to be one of them." Toby went to the shed at the big station. He was given new paint, a new bell, and his brasswork was polished until his driver could see himself in it. "You haven't looked so smart for years," he said. "I nearly didn't recognise you." They set out for the junction where the branch line to the village began. As they arrived, a train came in from the branch. The engine was younger than Toby, but he was dirty. His rods clanked and steam leaked from everywhere. "The poor engine," said Toby. "Can I help pull his next train to the seaside, please?" The station master agreed, so Toby was coupled in front. "Festival time is the best time of the year," the other engine lots of extra trains and visitors. "Expect you'll be able to stand on the long carriage siding." They soon reached the seaside station, where the station master came out to meet them. He was surprised to see Toby. He stared, frowned, and went away shaking his head. Next day, Toby was excited. He woke up early and saw the sea sparkling in the distance. White birds wheeled and swooped overhead, making loud mewing noises. "I wonder what those birds could be," thought Toby. "My driver's sure to know. I'll ask him when he gets here." But his crew arrived looking glum. "It's all off, Toby," his driver told him. "They say there's nothing for you to stand in here." "But what's wrong with here?" wailed Toby. "I'm not in anybody's way where I am at the moment." "It's just an excuse, I reckon," said Toby's driver, lowering his voice. "The real trouble is you're too smart, Toby. They're afraid you'll show their branch line up." Just then a door banged. Toby jumped. "Wake up, Toby," smiled his driver. "Time to get back to work." Toby sighed as he moved from the shed. "Well, I did get to the seaside," he murmured, "even if it wasn't for long. But I think the Fat Controller would have managed all that festival business much better." Bulstrode. A few days later, Percy was shunting in the yard at Farquhar when the station master came up. "Leave those trucks, please, Percy," he said. "There's emergency down at the harbour. The Fat Controller wants you to go about it and sort it out straight away." "But Toby can't," began Percy. "Never mind that," the station master said. "The Fat Controller needs you double quick. Leave us to worry about the shunting." He hurried away to make the arrangements. Bulstrode was a barge used for carrying stone. He was a disagreeable barge, nothing was ever right for him, and he grumbled unceasingly. Trucks grumbled too, but they weren't a patch on Bulstrode. Come on," shouted Bulstrode rudely one morning. "Why aren't your trucks where you should be? How can I be loaded if you dawdle about up there, eh?" "There's no engine, and we can only go where we're put," retorted the trucks crossly. "You're in the wrong place, not us." They argued for some time. It made no difference. Bulstrode was in the wrong place, and he was not due to leave until the next day, but he wasn't going to let a little thing like that stop him complaining. When Percy arrived, Bulstrode was sulking and the trucks were annoyed with him. "Our stone is for Bulstrode," they said. "Please, put us into a siding so that we can load him up and be rid of him as soon as possible." The line slopes down to the harbour. Percy pulled the trucks a little way up the hill, clear of the points. As he stopped, one of the truck's brakes slipped on. When Percy began to push, the truck started with a jerk, and a coupling broke. 4 loose trucks heavy with stone gathered speed. "Help! Help!" they wailed. A shunter bravely tried to stop them, but only broke his pole. The truck rattled along the quay straight towards Bulstrode, unsuspecting at the end. Bulstrode heard a rattle and a shout or two, but he could see nothing. The first he knew of anything wrong was when 4 loaded stone trucks shot, one by one, off the end of the quay to bury themselves in his hold. "Oof!" he exclaimed. Anything else was lost in a gurgle as the trucks burst a hole in his hull and water began to pour in. Bulstrode experienced an awful sinking feeling. "Save me!" he spluttered. "I'm drowning!" But Bulstrode didn't drown. As chance would have it, the tide was out, so he did not go right under the water. The trucks were upset at losing some of their friends, but were very little bothered about Bulstrode. "Nothing but a nuisance he was," they said to each other, "always barging in and moaning about not being loaded fast enough." They sniggered. This time he got his load faster than he bargained for. Serves him right if you ask us. Percy was kept busy for some time afterwards, clearing up the mess. When the remains of the truck had been lifted out the water, he took them to the scrapyard while workmen rescued what stone they could. As for Bulstrode, everything else had been cleared. His remains were towed to a nearby beach, where they could do no harm. Now children play happily among the wreckage. If Bulstrode is still grumbling, as I expect he is, the children take no notice. Toby takes the road. When Percy was away, Terence had done all the shunting in the yard. "Adaptable," he boasted. "That's what my owner says I am. Go anywhere, do anything, that's me. You take my advice and scrap your rails, broaden your outlook, like me." "Pah," said Percy. "Me plough a field? I prefer to stay on my rails, thank you." "Steam engines really did plough, once upon a time," Terence chuckled, "and ran on roads." The engines remembered Trevor, and had to admit that Terence was right about that. Repairs to Mavis took longer than expected, and Toby became used to trundling off to the quarry each morning. Because of Toby's small water tank, his driver and fireman had arranged with the quarry manager that they should bring loaded trucks down to Farquhar at lunchtime instead of later in the day. This saved time too. Toby would otherwise have needed an extra journey to fill his water tank. This way he delivered the trucks and got water in one visit. Time passed and the weather became colder, with hard frosts during the night. They didn't worry Toby. His fire kept him nice and warm, and he puffed happily to and fro, arranging the trucks, taking them down to the yard, and bringing back empty ones. One night it was especially cold. The ground froze, and even Toby felt chilly. "Brrr," he shivered as he left the shed and set out along the line towards the quarry. When the ground freezes, it swells. As the road crossing where Mavis has had her accident, the frost had swollen the earth in the rusts beside the rails, so much that Toby's wheels were lifted off the track. There was a crunching noise, a rumbling, and Toby began to shudder. He was horrified. "He exclaimed, "What's happening?" Line here curves away towards the quarry, but Toby, with no rails to guide his wheels round, simply went straight on. Toby was not going fast. "Whoa there, Toby," said his driver at once, and put on the brakes as hard as he dared. Shakily, Toby stopped with all 6 wheels firmly on the roadway. "Oh dear," he said, looking at the grass verge in front of him. "Now what do we do?" His fireman jumped down. "No problem," he said. "With care we can have you back on the rails in no time." "I don't see how," said Toby sadly. Directed by the fireman, the driver carefully reversed Toby along the ruts his wheels had just made. At last, with a thud and a jolt, Toby felt the rails safely beneath his wheels once more. "Well done, Toby," said his fireman. "I'll spread a few hot ashes from your fire along there so it doesn't happen again. Then we can get safely up to the quarry and no one will be any the wiser." But they reckon without the Fat Controller. When Mavis was home after being mended, he came to see the engines. "What's the shy here, Toby?" he asked. "Trying to be a traction engine, were you?" Toby blushed, but the Fat Controller wasn't cross. Toby told him about Terence. The Fat Controller laughed. "If I were you," he said, "I should leave the roads to what they were made for. You stay on the rails, you'll find them much more comfortable for a tram engine like you." Toby was quick to agree. Thomas and the Twins. Scrambled eggs. "The bridge across the river needs repair," the Fat Controller told the engines. "I shall have to make a weight limit across it for a while. Percy and Daisy will be all right, and Toby too, but Thomas is too heavy." Thomas looked anxious. "Would you like to go and help Edward?" suggested the Fat Controller. "Can Annie and Clarabelle come too?" asked Thomas. The Fat Controller shook his head. "They'll be needed here, I'm afraid," he said. "Daisy can't carry all your passengers on her own." Percy promised to look after Annie and Clarabelle, but they were sorry to see Thomas go. To cheer Thomas up, Edward took him to see Bill and Ben, the twin engines who lived at the China Clay Harbour. "Oh dear, not another blue engine," said Bill cheekily. "First Edward, then Donald, and Douglas, and now—" "Don't forget Gordon," interrupted Ben. "Came here once by mistake, so he said. I don't think he enjoyed it much," he added innocently. The twins both chuckled, remembering. "No, but seriously, Edward," said Bill, "why doesn't the Fat Controller paint engines a proper colour? Like us, for instance?" Thomas let off steam indignantly. "Let me tell you," he began. "All right, you two," laughed Edward. "Go and move those trucks or there won't be room for any more." Bill and Ben, unabashed, went off happily. "You don't have to take them too seriously," explained Edward. Thomas smiled ruefully. "I wish I knew how you deal with them," he said. Near the harbour, the line crossed a lane. The crossing had no gates. The lane led to a farm which supplied food to the shops in the town. One morning, the farmer had difficulty starting his lorry. He did it at last, but the lorry jerked along in fits and starts. The farmer was worried about his load of milk and butter and eggs. "Milk will be churned to butter soon," he muttered to himself as he neared the level crossing. The lorry lurched across the rails. The back wheels were just clear when its engine made a noise like a tired sheep and stopped. The back of the lorry was still jutting out over the railway line. The farmer struggled to start it again, but it would not go. He had just got down to telephone for help when he heard a train approaching. Thomas wasn't going fast. When he saw the lorry, he set his brakes hard, but he couldn't stop. He hit the lorry with a loud crash. The force of the blow spun the lorry around. Splintered wood flew everywhere, and eggs, butter and milk were catapulted over Thomas. "Ugh!" he explained, and stopped. "Look at my poor lorry," said the farmer, coming out from behind the hedge where he had been sheltering. "What a way to make an omelette!" The driver made sure Thomas wasn't hurt, then stood back and surveyed the mess. He began to laugh. "It's not funny," said Thomas crossly. An egg yolk trickled down his nose and burst on his buffer. "You're not standing where I am," said his driver. "You look just like a scrambled egg, Thomas." "If a scrambled egg feels as sticky and wet as I do, then it's very uncomfortable," said Thomas. "Please clean me." Both his driver and his fireman tried hard, but the heat of Thomas's boiler had cooked the eggs, and they were stuck. "Sorry, Thomas," said his driver at last. "We can't block the line any longer. We shall have to go on." At the end of the line, Thomas was taken to Bill and Ben's yard to be cleaned. The twins were there. "What's this?" asked Ben. "Must be a new engine," said Bill. Ben inspected the arrival. "No, Bill," he said, "that's not a new engine, it's Thomas. But it's our colour, Ben, and Thomas doesn't think our colour is proper for an engine." He heard a grinding noise. "Are your joints stiff, Bill?" asked Ben. But it wasn't Bill's joints, it was Thomas gnashing his teeth. What a picture! It took a long time to clean Thomas properly, and the twins kept teasing him until Edward told them to stop. "A party of railway enthusiasts is coming soon," he said. "I shan't bring them unless you behave." Bill and Ben were excited. Enthusiasts always made a fuss of them and took their photographs. "When?" they squeaked. Edward smiled and winked at Thomas. "Next week," he said, "but not if you don't behave." Bill and Ben promised that they would. "Is it next week?" they asked Thomas each morning. Thomas enjoyed keeping the twins in suspense. "Next week never comes," he would answer mysteriously. Bill and Ben weren't worried. They kept urging their crews to polish them. "What's the hurry?" the men laughed. "Those enthusiasts aren't going to eat. Their breakfast's off you know." "No," Bill whispered. "They might if we were Thomas." The twins thought this a huge joke. It was lucky that Edward and Thomas weren't there to hear it. At last the day came, and the drivers and firemen agreed to give the engines an extra polish. They were sparkling when Thomas arrived with the special train. Many of the enthusiasts had notebooks, and almost all had cameras. Bill and Ben didn't know which way to look, but they loved all the attention they were getting. Then the visitors queued up for a ride in either Bill or Ben's cab. Their cabs were low and several visitors forgot to duck, but they didn't seem to mind. The enthusiasts' visit was almost over when a shunter came running up with a message. "A ship needs moving before the tide goes down," he said. "One of you see to it, please." Ben went at once, and most of the visitors went too, to watch. Only one man stayed. He had a camera which took instant pictures. "Just one more," he kept saying. Even Bill tired of him. The photographer screwed his camera into a tripod and pointed it at Bill. "This is it," he chortled. "What a picture!" Ben's fireman ran up. "Ben needs help," he said. "The ship's going aground and he can't move it on his own." "Right, Bill," said his driver. "We can't wait any longer." He turned the tap, and with a hiss and a roar, Bill vanished in a cloud of steam. At that moment the photographer pressed the button. When the steam cleared, Bill was hurrying off to help his twin. The photographer peeled the cover from the instant picture, looked at it and threw it down in disgust. Quickly the engines were coupled together. "When I say heave, heave," instructed Ben. 1, 2, 3, heave." Come on," puffed the engines. The cable tightened and scratched. At last, with a shudder, the ship slid off the mud. Towed by the engines, it glided out into the deeper waters of the harbour. Bill's driver found the discarded photograph on the ground by the rails. All it showed was a cloud of steam. Very dimly, Bill's funnel at the top. He showed it to Bill. "What a picture," remarked Bill, to no one in particular. Trevor helps out. Trevor, the traction engine, was feeling depressed. He couldn't breathe properly. "Your boiler needs fixing," said his owner, the vicar, "but I can't afford it at present." One morning the vicarage telephone rang. The vicar answered it, then hurried out to see Trevor. "You may be a bit under the weather, but you can manage this," he said. "The farmer has a tree down and wants you to saw it up for him." When Trevor had steam, they went to the farm and set to work in a field near the railway. Thomas passed by with Edward's coaches. He whistled cheerfully. Edward liked trucks and had been delighted to let Thomas have his coaches for a while. When Edward passed later that morning, he was pulling trucks with a sort of tent over them. These were specially for carrying china clay. The men called them hoods. "Why hoods?" Thomas had asked Bill and Ben. "Hoods are those things like tents," explained Bill. "Keep the clay dry," added Ben. "Wet clay goes in tanks." But to Trevor they were simply trucks. He was enjoying himself. The only thing he liked better than sawing logs was giving rides to children. He shunted happily at the pile of logs beside him grew. Edward returned with some empty trucks. As he passed the place where Trevor was working, the line seemed to wobble under him. "That feels like a loose rail," he thought. "We'd better tell the maintenance people." At the harbour, Edward exchanged the empty trucks for full ones and set off for the junction again. Trevor dozed. The wind had dropped and it was comfortable in the autumn sunshine. It seemed no time at all before he had heard Edward coming back. Trevor whistled a cheerful greeting. He was watching Edward, and so did not see one of the trucks, 6 from the end, sink and jump and shudder. At just the spot where Edward had felt a weakness in the line, spark flew, a truck wheel jammed and a coupling broke. The last 6 trucks and the guard's van lurched, bumped and stopped. The guard, safe in his van, blew his whistle. Edward far in front didn't hear it and hurried on without realising what had happened. But Trevor was closer to the guard's van than Edward. He heard the whistle and looked back to see the trucks lying at the strange angles. Peep, 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 he whistled in horror. Stop, Edward, stop! Edward heard that. It's Trevor, he cried anxiously. What's wrong? We'd better stop and see, said his driver. The fireman climbed onto the tender. Phew, he exclaimed. Look, it's not Trevor, it's us. The guard went to protect the train. The fireman went to the farmhouse to telephone for help, and the breakdown gang soon cleared the line. That evening the Fat Controller came to see Trevor. Thank you, Trevor, he said. I've heard about your boiler, and because you saved a nasty situation, you're to go to my works to be mended. Would you like that? Oh, sir, said Trevor happily. Thank you. Down the drain. China clay is not quarried, as other minerals are. It is washed out of the ground with strong hoses. Then the mixture of clay and water has to settle and be dry before Bill and Ben can take it away. Part of the line which the twins use to reach the China clay workings runs near the sea. There is a hollow in the land just here which often floods after heavy rain. Local people call this hollow the drain. The autumn gales which had brought down the farmer's tree for Trevor to cut up were also causing rough sea and high tides. When rain came too, the engine's crews looked gloomy. A really high tide now, said Ben's driver, could make real trouble at the drain. But though pools of water lay on either side of the line, they grew no larger. Bill and Ben puffed happily to and fro, replacing loaded hoods with empty ones. They forgot about the drain, and then the rain began again, and the wind strengthened. As the engines went to the clay pits that morning, their drivers noticed that the water in the drain was rising. While Bill arranged the empty trucks, Ben prepared to leave with a train of full ones. At the drain, he found that the water was level with the top of the rails. Come on, said Ben bravely. We must get through, if only to get help for Bill. Go back, the wind seemed to shriek. Ben took no notice. He was halfway over when the rising tide whipped into a huge wave by the wind, swept him across the line. Oof! Spluttered Ben as water crashed against his side. Help! With a hiss, the water reached his fire. Quick, Ben, urged his driver, but it was too late. With a disappearing gasp, Ben stopped. He was stranded in the middle of the drain, with seawater lapping his wheels. The fireman set off to find help. Keep on the sleepers, advised the driver. We don't want you swamped as well. Water reached the fireman's waist, but he struggled on. At last, cold and soaking, he reached the yard. Thomas was there, wondering where his trucks were. The driver wasted no time. Ben must be rescued, he said. We need a steel cable, a pair of waders, and some determination. Yes, said Thomas doubtfully. He understood the cable, but he wasn't sure about determination, and didn't even know what waders were. Thomas stopped at the water's edge. His fireman put on the waders and set out carrying the end of the cable. Ben was delighted to see him. The fireman fastened the cable end to Ben's front coupling. Then he uncoupled the trucks so that Bill, who had come up behind, could pull them clear. Right, he said as he joined Ben's driver in the cab. Let's go. Poor Ben had no steam left to whistle, so the driver and fireman waved to show Thomas they were ready. Carefully, Thomas took the strain. Slowly, with water cascading all round him, Ben came out of the drain. Once he was clear, Thomas was properly coupled to him and helped him back to his shed. Thank you, Thomas, said Ben gratefully. His eyes twinkled for the first time in several hours. It was 4 days before the water in the drain had subsided. When Bill reached home, both twins agreed that it would be ungrateful of them to ever tease Thomas again. Jock the New Engine. We need another engine. Rex, Bert and Mike, the small railway engines, were very excited. The thin clergyman had written a book about them, and today it was going to be published. "Am I in it?" asked Frank. He was a diesel, and inclined to be grumpy with the other engines. The small controller shook his head. "I'm sorry," he said. "You weren't here when the Finn clergyman wrote it. I'm afraid so he didn't know about you." Frank was cross. When his driver came to start him the next day, he refused to go. "It's not fair," Frank grumbled. "Why can't I be in a book like the others?" "Cheer up," said his driver. "It's only a book." "I've got pictures, hasn't it?" muttered Frank. "I'm not in them either, I suppose." "Come on, Frank," said his driver, losing patience. "It's teamwork that counts on a railway, not books." He pressed the starter button again. "Don't dare," growled Frank, and started suddenly, jerked forward before his driver could stop him. Frank hit the wall at the back of the shed. Frank was unhurt, but one of the shed supports was cracked. He was sorry at once, and even sorrier when he realised that the small controller had just come into the shed. The small controller was cross, and ordered Frank out to work while he made sure that the shed was safe. That afternoon, Rex left the bottom station with a heavy train. As they climbed the front hill, his driver watched the steam gauge anxiously. "We've got a steam leak somewhere," he said. They stopped in a loop to let Mike pass. That helped, but Rex was exhausted when they reached the green. He hardly noticed Frank working in the siding. "I think we can make it to the top," urged his driver. But they didn't. They had to stop in the next loop. The driver switched on his radio telephone. Engines on the small railway are now fitted with radio telephones. Their drivers can talk to control, who can then make sure that the trains run safely. "Rex's steam pipe is leaking badly," reported the driver to control. "We're all right on our own, but the train is too much for us. Can you help, please?" "We'll get you out somehow," said control. "Don't worry." "Very funny," muttered Rex. "Chance would be a fine thing." "Overworked, that's what we are," Bert sympathised as he passed with a down train. "We need another engine." About 10 minutes later, Rex heard a cheerful toot from behind, and Frank rumbled behind the loop. "Wonderful things, these radios," said Frank. "Control says you need help, so I'm to take the train and let you go home alone. Teamwork, my driver calls it." Frank ran ahead, and Rex was uncoupled and backed into the loop. Frank reversed onto the train, and when everything was ready, set off for the top station. Rex hurried home, and his driver set to work to mend the broken steam pipe. This job took a long time. "If only we had a spare engine," grumbled the driver. At the top station, Frank's driver apologised to the passengers for being late, but they didn't mind. "Things right very well," he said. "We were expecting a walk home." The small controller was pleased too. "Well done, Frank," he said, "and the shed is not badly damaged either, so we'll say no more about it." But he was thoughtful as he went back to his office. "Frank shouldn't have to do rescue acts," he said to himself. "We do need another engine. Sticking power." Holiday season was drawing to a close. It had been a busy year, and Bert was feeling unwell. Rex and Mike were unsympathetic. "Poor old Bert," they said to each other. "What a shame he's out of puff. No stamina, these youngsters." "What you need, Bert," Mike went on, "is determination and sticking power." "Sticking power be blowed. I might have known I'd get no sympathy from you two," grumbled Bert. "I can't get my breath properly," Bert complained to his fitter. "You need new tubes," the fitter said, "but we can't spare you at present. Keep going and we'll give you a new set during the winter." He paused and looked over his shoulder. "Keep it under your dome," he said quietly, "but I did hear rumours about a new engine. We need one, because if any of you three failed, we'd really be in trouble." He gave Bert's tubes a good clean. This helped a little, but Bert soon fell poorly again. Bert did his best, and one afternoon he reached the top station feeling very pleased with himself. His train was full, yet he had only lost a few minutes on the journey. His driver put him onto the turntable, and he ran eagerly round to his coaches. "That gives me time for a good breather before we go down again," he said to himself. He simmered happily as he waited for the guard to blow his whistle and wave his green flag. There was a hill near the station. Bert knew that once he was over it, he could run home without losing time. At last the guard waved his flag. "Come on, puffed Bert. Come on. Come on, come. Oh!" Suddenly there was a jerk and everything seemed easy. Bert's driver looked back. "Whoa," he groaned. "Back we go. We've left our train behind." Guard met him. "Tender's coupling's broken," he said. "We'll just have to stick round until someone can bring up a spare." "Stick around?" grumbled Bert crossly. "I know what Rex and Mike will say about sticking." The driver looked at him. "Hey," he explained, "you've given me an idea." He disappeared into the station shop, returned carrying a small box. "Glue," he explained. "It's supposed to stick anything." "Even trains?" snorted Bert disbelievingly. His driver ignored him and set to work. "Now I've heard everything," muttered Bert. Then an idea came to him and he smiled. "Oh, that'll stop their teasing," he said to himself. At last the job was done. "There's no hurry," said Bert's driver. "We'll take it steady and make sure the passengers get home. The guard has told them what has happened, and they say they don't mind being late." The hill near the station was the difficult part. Gently, carefully, Bert eased the train over it. After that, though he took care, it was with growing confidence that he trundled the train home. The passengers all gave him 3 cheers. When Rex and Mike came into the shed that evening, they looked tired. "Phew," remarked Mike. "Thank goodness we're not as busy as that every day." Bert grinned. "Sorry you're tired," he said brightly. "I thought you older engines had sticking power. What you need is," and he told them about his venture with the glue. "So that's sticking power," he finished. "Never mind, some of us have it and some of us don't. Good night." And he went happily to sleep. Jock. "You know what I think?" asked Bert one evening, and soon after the next season began. "News to me that you could, Bert," said Mike cheekily. "I suppose it would be," retorted the Blue Engine, "never having done any thinking yourself." Rex chuckled and he and Mike waited. "Well, go on," prompted Mike at last. "Aren't you going to impress us with your thoughts after all?" He winked at Rex. "Something," Bert announced, "is going on in the workshop." "Work?" suggested Rex innocently. Bert took no notice. "I think," went on Bert, "that the men are building something. I was waiting at the platform yesterday and the workshop door was open. I couldn't see much, but there was something on the floor inside. It looked like a boiler." "Is that all?" said Rex. He sounded disappointed. "Probably a spare for one of us," said Mike. "Don't think so," argued Bert. "There were wheels as well. What I think," he paused dramatically, "is that they're building a new engine." "My fitter said he'd heard a rumour," added Bert. 3 small engines looked hopefully at each other. "About time too," said Rex. "What's the new engine's name?" Mike asked his driver the next morning. "How did you know about the new engine?" the driver asked. "It's supposed to be a surprise." They told him. "I don't think the small controller has chosen the name yet," he said, and laughed. "When he does, I'll let you know." But a few weeks later, when the new engine came out of the workshop tests, the small controller had still not decided on a name. "How odd," remarked Mike, looking with interest at the new engine's square windows and square top dome. "And what a funny colour," put in Rex. "No, it's not," said Bert. "I like it." The new engine smiled. "So do I," he said. "My driver says it will be different in the end. This is something he calls an undercoat." Donald and Douglas came to look too. Douglas had just brought some empty ballast trucks along the branch line. He and Duck watched with interest as the new engine was put through his paces. "It puts me in the mind of my days in Scotland," Douglas remarked. "Some of the engines up in the Highlands were yon colour. Jocks we used to call them." "Jocks?" asked the new engine, stopping nearby. "Aye," agreed Douglas. "Not a bad name for yourself, eh, Jock?" The small controller was delighted. "Well done, Douglas," he said, and turned to the new engine. "What do you think?" he asked. "It means you'd have to keep your colour too, to give the name some point. Would you mind?" "Not a bit, sir," said the new engine. "I like the colour, and the name would suit me fine." "Excellent," said the small controller. "That's settled then. Thank you, Douglas. A splendid idea." And Douglas puffed away, well satisfied with his morning's work. Teamwork. All the tests on Jock went without a hitch, and when the holiday months came, the new engine had already proved his value. He was stronger than the others, and people even came to the railway especially to see him. Unfortunately, this went to his smoke box and he became rather cocky. One day, Jock was alone at the bottom station. A container of sleepers arrived, but the lorry could not get into the yard. "Now what?" demanded the lorry driver, scratching his head. "No problem," said the small controller. "Just arrange the trailer astride the rails and leave it. Jock will do the rest." Cable was fastened between Jock's tent and the trailer, and puffing hard, Jock pulled the trailer into the yard. "Road or rail, what do I care?" Jock boasted in the shed that night. The engines looked at each other in dismay. Next day, Mike was waiting at the platform to take a train up the line when he saw Jock backing down towards him. "What's this?" he asked as Jock was coupled on. "I can manage." "Small controller wants me to help," said Jock importantly. "The party on the train had asked to see me especially." "Oh, has it?" said Mike. "Well, make sure you don't leave me to push you as well as pull the train." That gave Mike an idea. He whispered to his driver, who grinned and nodded. "We'll do it after the green," he said. So when they restarted from the green, he gradually cut off steam. Now the whole way to the train, with Mike as well, pulled on Jock's coupling. Smoke and steam shot high into the air as he had to work extra hard to keep moving. Jock's driver glanced back when he saw Mike grinning. He realised what was going on. "Feeling tired, Mike?" asked Jock at the top station. "You were enjoying yourself," Mike grinned. "I didn't want to spoil your fun." "Ah," said Jock, "I wondered if perhaps I was going too fast for you." "Too fast?" spluttered Mike. "You wait." But Jock didn't wait. He chuckled and ran quickly away so that Mike could have his turn on the table. Mike was still cross when it was time to leave and started at a great pace. "Steady," said his driver. "We're not racing anymore." "That's what you think," muttered Mike. They stopped at the green. Mike's driver tried to let water into the boiler, but the injector wouldn't work. "Ouch!" squealed Mike. "Get me a drink quickly, please. I think I'm going to burst." "Your injector has failed," explained the driver, turning to his radio telephone. "Now Jock will have to pull us home." "What?" spluttered Mike, but there was no other way. Mike's fire was put out. Jock moved to the front of the train, and in the end little time was lost. Duck, warned by control, was waiting for any passengers who wanted to go to the big station. Mike went to the shed to be mended and was feeling better by the time the others arrived. "I'm sorry I made you do all the work this morning," Mike apologised when Jock came in. "Thank you for bringing me home." "Oh, that's all right," said Jock. "I'm sorry too. It's silly trying to get the better of each other. If I hadn't teased you, perhaps your injector wouldn't have failed. It taught me a lesson. On a railway, it's teamwork that counts." The other three small engines agreed, and looking at them, Jock was glad that he was one of the team.